Hi everyone, it's Maria from Creative Grids, and today I've got a 12-inch skinny pineapple trim tool to show you. You can do a block as small as 6 inches, a 9-inch block, and a 12-inch block with this tool. So let's take a look at the great features that come with it. This tool has all of the great features that you know and love from Creative Grid. I've got black and white markings that designate rounds as well as seam lines and outlines for the different blocks. We've got the great grip that you'll see here along the outside edges and in some of my centering squares. We've got notes on there that tell you how wide to cut the strips and how big that center square is. And I've even got a picture of a 6-inch, a 9-inch, and a 12-inch block. You can thank Jean Ann Wright for her collaboration with us on this tool. It's a great trim tool to add to the family. Here I've even got a QR code right on the ruler so that you can scan that. It will take you right to the website where you can see useful information, the instructions if you happen to have lost them, as well as companion patterns for other things that you can make using this tool. So let's get started. But first, let's gather some tools in order to make these blocks. I'm going to start with my Creative Grid self-healing cutting mat. I've already got my 12-inch skinny pineapple trim tool. I'm going to need a rotary cutter, so I'm going to take my Creative Grid cutter. I'm going to need some fabric. So here is my fabric A, this beautiful yellow. And here is my fabric B, a whole assortment of 1.5-inch strips. You can cut them down to size like the instructions tell you, or you can just pull out of your stash and trim as you go like Jean Ann would prefer. So the choice is up to you. I am a trimmer, so I'm going to cut some pieces. I'm also going to use my ABC 1, 2, 3 cool pins from Gypsy Quilter so that I can label the rounds as I cut them and prepare to make a block. So I've done some trimming, and with the help of the pins, I've got round 1, 2, 3, all the way to 14. You can see as I'm lining these up that every other one is a bright batik, which is fabric B. And the others, or the odd number rounds, are the yellow batik, which is fabric A. I'm also going to need some center squares and some corner triangles. For the 12-inch block, I'm going to do a 4.5-inch square cut in half. I think we'll set these up here so you can see them. If I were doing a 6-inch block, I would only need a 2.5-inch square, and a 9-inch block needs a 3.5-inch square. So you do your prep work however you desire. This is how I typically set up my sewing table. Here I've got round 1. I've added 4 1.5 by 2-inch strips, 1 to each side of the square, and I'm going to trim for round 1. So if you take a look at the template again, here's the centering square for round 1. I'm going to put that center square right there and trim. See how that white box sits right in the outline of that square there? Carefully open my rotary cutter, trim off those top 2 triangles, reposition the block, and trim again. I like to use the lines on the mat to help make sure that I'm lined up nice and straight, but with the markings on the tool, it's not really necessary. I like to make sure I close that blade in between each time. Don't just lay it on the table open. That's how I end up cutting myself by accident. Look at how easy that is. One more side. And there you go. There's round one trimmed. Now I'm going to add the next round. Look at the difference. There's that center square with the yellow that looks like I added triangles, but we know it was really strips. I added the next set of strips to do round two. I'm going to turn the ruler around now and use the other end. Here is the square for round two. I'm going to line that up on the center square. It's also got these great dotted lines to make sure that I'm square on that square in the middle, and I can trim two sides at once. And then you start collecting this nice little pile of scraps off to the side here. And there's my new square. Rounds 1 and 2. Here I've got round 3. If you take a look at the wording here, it says 45 angle trim line, rounds 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13. So for the odd rounds or the tips of my yellow batik, which is fabric A, I am always going to use this line. And I want you to notice when you trim, you're going to have this little window of fabric B showing through. That is correct. A pineapple only has points on these first 2 rounds, and now we're going to start knocking them off to give that pineapple look to the block. Oh, now that's not quite right. I'm only going to use this center square for round 1. If I had cut here, I would have cut this log of the pineapple way too small. So after round 1, remember you want this 45-degree angle line along the bottom of that last fabric B, which happens to be the batik. Make sure you don't slide it down too far and cut off too much of your block. Seam line, white line, all good. There is round 1, 2, 3. Here I've got round 4 already sewn on to save some time. Remember, even rounds, look for the squares up here. Round 2 is covered with the special grip material. Round 4 is this white outline right in between. So when you're first learning how to use the tool, take your time and find the things that help you line up for great cutting. Okay, I'm going to apply a little bit of pressure so that that can't shift while I cut. Slice off those corners. I like these rounds because I only have to move the ruler once. Well, I like all the rounds. Round 4. And I want you to notice a couple other things. Here's that round 4. Here's those dotted lines that go along that seam line, and look what's starting to line up now. The seam line for those layers are going to start going along these dotted lines as we work our way across the ruler. Give myself a little room. Let's put these up on the wall to enjoy. And that's a great comparison for how the block grows every time you add a round. Now we are up to round 5. If you're only going to make a 6-inch block, this is round 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When in doubt, I always count them. I try to keep a list and mark off which ones I've trimmed, but sometimes I need to actually count the rounds I've done. So for round 6, I'm going to trim like we did before. Find that center square for the 6-inch block, and for round 6. Take a look, there's that 6-inch round. My dotted lines are hitting the seam lines coming up across the pineapple block. I'm going to trim those 2 corners. If your plan is to go ahead and make a 12-inch block or even a 9-inch, you're just going to add the next round, trim, add, trim, add, trim. However, if you want to make a 6-inch block, you've just trimmed, but I'm going to trim one more time. It's going to go against the grain because I've been kind of insisting on where to do this, but I'm going to line it up just like this, that 45-degree line right on the seam line of that last fabric B strip. Trim off this little bit on all 4 corners. For this size block, you're going to need 2.5-inch squares. Sew those on and trim them, and you'll end up with a 6-inch, actually 6.5 before you put it in your quilt, but a 6-inch finished pineapple block. Now I'm going to make a big block, so I'm going to keep going. I am up to round 10, and I'm going to count again just to be sure. I've got round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Round 10 is where you're going to stop if you want a 9-inch block. So you're going to trim this round twice. I just did this. That round 10 square centered, trim, trim, flip, trim again. Remember, every time you finish at a size, you're going to trim that round or that block twice. I'm lining up that 45-degree line on the seam line of fabric B to trim these off. And then I'm going to add 3.5-inch half square triangles to the edge to finish the block. So if you only want a 9-inch, now you're done. But I want that big 12-inch, so we're going to keep going. Now we're on to round 11. It's an odd number, so I'm going to use that 45-degree line. Okay, we're at round 14, so my block is almost finished. Remember how we stopped at round 6 and at round 10 for the 6 and the 9-inch blocks and trimmed twice. So I've just done this part, round 14, to trim up the sides. I'm going to turn this and use the 45-degree line to trim a little bit off that fabric B strip. You may wonder why I do that. Well, I want all of them to finish at the same size. So I've trimmed every single round up until this point. Even though we're adding triangles here, I still want that particular piece to finish at a 3/4 inch in width. Now that I'm at the end, I've done my 14 rounds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I need to add some 4.5-inch square triangles to the corners. Sometimes I use this point to kind of play with how it's going to look. The design wall would be great for that too. Got a hot pink over there. Sew those, center them. If you need to do a little fold to find the center of that triangle and of the pineapple block edge, go ahead. Sometimes I just eyeball my extra here on the triangle. But you're going to sew those on, press them away. Once you've sewn on those triangles, this is what your 12-inch block is going to look like. I'm going to take the trim tool again, I have a square here that's marked 12-inch block center square. That's going to go right on that center square of your block. And remember my dotted lines here that I keep lining up on that seam line. That helps to make sure to know that I'm right on there. The lines here should line up with your seam lines. Are pretty close. I'm going to rotary cut again. I like those triangles a little bit big so I can trim them down to fit and use the tool to square them up. Rotate that block one more time. Center square, white diagonals, seam lines, and finish trimming. And here I have a 12.5-inch skinny pineapple block. So here at a quick glance, you can see all the way from round 1 to 6 for that 6-inch. Keep going from 7 to 10 for that 9-inch block. And then keep going from there to round 14, add the triangles, and there's your 12.5-inch skinny pineapple block. Make as many or as few blocks as you want. There are some companion patterns that you'll find if you follow the QR code to the website, along with tools and other companions that work well with this type of tool. Don't forget your Creative Grid rotary cutter and the mat that goes with it. The mat is self-healing. You're going to love it.